Well, that's not good.
That's not good. I'm not happy with myself.
Yeah, that's okay.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today is an exciting day. Right here we have a 2018 Ford F250 XLT with the cloth interior and just a little tiny baby 8-inch screen in the dash. What we're gonna be doing in this video is actually swapping this complete 2022 black leather Lariat interior with heated and cooled seats with this 12-inch Sync 4 dash right there with the dual climate control and the black door panels and a complete interior wiring harness and a Bang & Olufsen sound system with a factory subwoofer. It's gonna be a lot of work. I think we got our work cut out for us. So first thing that I'm gonna do is show you guys this old interior. Take a look at that. This truck has 196,000 miles, one owner, super clean, like highway miles truck. And as you can tell, it is super clean. Just overall, it doesn't even look like anybody ever really sat in the passenger seat, and it for sure doesn't look like anybody has sat in the rear. This thing is so clean on the inside, and it was just very well taken care of. So I think this truck is gonna suit me well for a very long time. This is kind of keeping me from wanting to go and buy a new truck. And the unique thing about the 2022 dash is that it only came in the 22s. This 8-inch screen right here, which this is the Sync 3 screen, this is the 8-inch one, and this is the same one that would be in a 2021 Platinum, Lariat, whatever. Pretty much this right here is exactly the same other than like non-dual climate control and this being a little bit different. So in order to get that big screen, it had to be a 22. There's been one guy that has swapped a 18 F150 with this dash with the Sync 3. And I think I've seen 2 pictures of other people doing it in Super Duties, but there has not been a big write-up or anything like that. One of the first things is obviously showing you guys what the before of this thing looks like. I did swap a Lariat steering wheel in here with the leather wrapped, and that was just a complete game changer. I loved that. But the first thing that I think that we need to do, again, there's not a write-up on this, there's not anybody telling you exactly how to do it other than maybe after this video, is actually plug into the OBD2 port with my laptop and the ForeScan, so I could go ahead and download all of the settings off of these modules and stuff that are in this truck, just in case I have a baseline to start when I go to start, you know, changing the settings and the coding and stuff when we put all the other stuff in it. Don't know how to do it. We're gonna figure it out, and let's get started. So what I'm doing here in ForeScan is going to these modules right here. The big one right there is like the APIM and the body control module. So what you'll do is you'll click on that in the as-built format, hit play. It'll go ahead and load all of the blocks. Then you can see right here on the bottom, it says save all. So you'll go ahead and save that, and I just saved it as before. I already have it saved up here. That's it. So now we have all of our modules that I think that we need saved. Should be good to close the ForeScan for now. And then now it's time to start ripping out this interior. All right, so there is 3 bolts, 2 bolts over here and 1 bolt on the top. There's 3 bolts on this side, 2 bolts on the other side going up the side. And there's 2 10mm bolts right here in basically the tranny tunnel, and 2 on the other side as well. As far as I can tell, there's 2 connectors right here so far. Another couple connectors that are just kind of coming out of the dash that go into the body control module fuse box harness over there. So got all that stuff unplugged. I disconnected the steering shaft, and I'm pretty sure everything should be good to leave the steering shaft and all that stuff in there. So that's kind of my goal. So I'm just pulling off the top bolts now. Once all that's done, we'll go ahead and pull off these side ones, and then the dash should pop back to be able to pull it out. So dash is almost out. There is one more bolt right there. You have to open the glove box and it just bolts it to that little hole, like right there. I got a great helper out here. Jamie, what do you think? Fun, right? No other wiring other than these two plugs right here and these bolts. There was a interesting kind of bolt right there. So technically 4 bolts over here. And then on that side, there was a little bit of wiring right there. Basically 3 more plugs behind the dash, and then those 3 plugs kind of hanging down right there. So the only other issue is there's this center harness which goes to like the airbag module that runs down the console, and I did not disconnect it. So that's one thing that I have to disconnect. So we got to kind of slide the dash back up. You can see these bolts right here, some more bolts on the other side. But I mean, overall the dash, it didn't really take me that long, right? Considering how serious it looks. But all right, I just got to unplug some things and then we can take it out. So the dash came out in pretty much one piece. Left the steering column, all the radio, gauge cluster, all that stuff in it. So that was pretty nice. So in order to figure out, I guess, what I need to do next, I need to look at this HVAC box. Since my truck was a single climate control zone, and this is a dual climate control zone, and this one also has a couple extra temperature sensors and stuff like that too, due to the automatic climate control, I'm gonna have to go ahead and swap a little bit of the wiring, and then I think there's like 2 temperature sensors and a couple other little things and maybe some ducting, or I might end up having to pull this whole piece off and then put that piece in there, but we'll double check. Honestly, I would like to leave mine in its place and then just take the pieces off, because then that means I don't have to recharge the AC or do any of that other stuff. I do have this complete interior wiring harness though. So I have all of that with basically that fuse box that goes right here. I don't know if this is 100% necessary. Obviously my seats, my passenger seat, you can see there's a few plugs in there, whereas I know for sure there's gonna be a lot more wires going to the passenger seat on this one, just due to the fact that it is heated and cooled and power, all that stuff too. So look at this stuff, see how far we need to go with that, and then continue. All right, rear seat, 2 bolts, well, some bolts right there, some bolts in the back. Pretty straightforward, right? And I got my heavy lifting partner. It's past her bedtime, but she's out here helping me get this thing out. She's gonna help me get the rear seat out, and then I'm gonna do everything else myself, and then prepare to reinstall tomorrow. All right, so it is the next day, and now pretty much the process is just get this harness out of here right now, unplug it in the doors, get those disconnected, and then pretty much get this HVAC box and I think the fender liner on the driver's side, because there is a big chunk of wiring that needs to go up through there. So you see this is the grommet that goes through the firewall on the driver's side. So this is the harness that goes there. I was looking at the body control modules last night. It's the same part number on the back, but there's a different fuse in there. Essentially the same body control module. I think a lot of it's just the programming, but there was like a couple fuses that are slightly different, you know, like instead of a 20 amp, it has a 30 amp in that, which that could just be for like the stereo or something. I think I'm gonna stick this body control module in there at first and see if that works. But there's also a key code on the back of it that I don't know if we have to program, if this means that like we're gonna have to change keys, or if I have to put my old body control module in it with these settings on it. Lots of interesting things. We also have to discharge the AC, heater core lines, all that other stuff to pull the heater box back. So I'm gonna get working on that and go from there. right, HVAC box is out. This is the old one. There's a little spot right here where this motor is supposed to go. And I think there's a couple extra temp sensors and stuff like that. Not 100% sure, but in order to get to the wiring to even put this module right here where it bolts, you would have had to pull it out anyhow, and I obviously already have it. And then even the door isn't even, it's like locked. So like where that is supposed to hook up and the blend door that it's supposed to do doesn't even work. It's like locked in there. So glad that we got this full thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in and just transfer everything over. All right, boys, so we ran into our first issue. Everything was just going so, well, not really smooth. It was a lot of work, and we knew that if we just did all the things to do the work, that everything then should go smooth. And we were at that stage where we did all the work, we laid the groundwork to put in the new harness. We got the whole interior harness out, pulled the headliner, got all that stuff unplugged, go to start plugging stuff in, start plugging everything in the back, laying out the harness, everyth's going good. And then we get up here to the front. I'm like, well, before we get too far and we start plugging in stuff in the headliner, I want to plug in this main harness up here. If you look right here, this is a male harness. And this right here is the harness that is supposed to plug into that harness. Well, obviously that's a male harness with a clamp. That's a male harness with a clamp, and they just don't work. So this is the 2022 harness. And then this is the harness that actually plugged into that, which is this guy. That is what we need, but we don't have that. We don't have this harness that comes out of the engine bay for the 22, which that technically, I think it goes to the ECU, it goes to the fuse box, and there's a lot of wires. Like this whole little bundle of wires all go to the engine bay. And I'm just concerned that, let's say we were to get this out of the 2022 truck, that truck is a full lariat. Who knows if the fuse box is correct. Plus it might have extra cameras, extra sensors and things like that. Plus it is also a 10-speed truck instead of a 6-speed truck. So kind of dealing with a lot of variables, and the way that the heated seats work on the XLT trucks, like a coil. So my seats are heated and my driver's seat is power, but the passenger seat is not power, but it is heated. So now the big problem is that over here on the dash, we have these heated and cooled seat buttons that won't work, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Do we need heated and cooled seats?
Can you fix my car?
Oh, she's actually over here fixing the car right now. She's putting all these random nuts and bolts in just any random hole that she can, and she's doing a really good job. I wish she could help me with my dilemma over here though. We're kind of stuck. Like, I don't know what to do, because obviously nothing's gonna plug in, nothing's gonna work. What do you think?
Either repin the harness, or we end up just trying the old harness with the new dash and seeing that goes in.
We need the wires. Like, this is the 22 harness, so this harness would plug right into those heated and cooled seats and have all the wires. Whereas if we plug in the 18 harness, it's not going to have the wires for the heated, the cooled, you know, any of that type of stuff, which obviously would be kind of a bummer. I think we could repin it to a certain degree, but I almost am wondering if we need the harness, like the body harness, cab harness, out of like an 18 Lariat that had heated and cooled seats. And because as far as I know, if we were able to, which I wish I would have done this before we started, put in this dash, and all of these plugs right here seem like they're the same. So I think we could have left my 18 harness in it, plugged it in, and had the dash work, but we wanted everything to work. We wanted the subwoofer, we wanted the heated and cooled seats, we wanted everything to work like factory. This is literally the only plug that is different. What we are going to do though is I do want to stick the dash in here. We didn't get a whole lot of stuff plugged in with this harness, so I think what I want to do is put the 18 harness in it, plug it in, stick the dash, plug these plugs in, key on, see where it's at, and potentially go from there. So we have the new dual zone climate control HVAC. We have the old 18 cab harness in here, kind of set loosely. This is officially bolted in, but we're essentially just gonna stick the dash in and see what happens when we key on. What do you think should happen?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Like,
I hope something.
I'm just a little frazzled now, because like, okay, if I put in 12 hours, we're gonna have an interior. We're almost at that stage, but now it's like hours of research plus then finding parts. If we need to find parts, order parts, wait for parts, then I don't have a truck.
Everything just always takes so much longer.
I should have just sold this truck and bought a Lariat. I mean,
Should have just bought couches.
Oh, Jamie wants me to buy couches. I bought an interior instead, so I'm kind of in the doghouse. Well, it's smoldering. Well, that's not good. Well, that was the first key on with everything in there, and we got a bunch of smoke out of the dash, so that's not good. I'm not happy with myself. So definitely a bummer. We went ahead and pulled the dash back out of this thing. Obviously, that's not the first thing that you want to do when you key on your very expensive dash with modules and screens and things that are hard to get and expensive. As soon as I turned on the key, Danner was like, hey, what was that? Turned off the key as fast as I could. Obviously started to smoke, visible smoke. You could smell it. It was smoke. It smelled like electronics. And we were looking under the back of it. We're like, oh, everything looks kind of good. And then we look right here and you can see that is just a wire that is just bare copper, and it goes to right here. Started right here in this plug. Obviously, this wire was a different wire than what it was meant to be, and the wire coming out of the truck was actually like a thick power, like a purple and pink power wire. I don't know if that's the exact color, but it was a thick power wire, and that is some sort of either signal or ground or something, because as soon as it got keyed on and it got power, it just zapped it and basically turned it into a freaking thing. So this whole wiring harness right here, definitely we need to double check all of that stuff. I think it just zapped that wire and it should be good, because literally it was key on, key off. I'm just concerned that hopefully it didn't mess up one of the modules or anything like that. But I would say the biggest lesson here is I was rushing. I just wanted this, obviously I was bummed because everything just didn't plug in, and I was like, okay, well, let's at least try this. And as far as I've seen on other people's things, they talked about like the pinouts. Well, obviously, like I didn't have any pinouts, and we just kind of were like, well, the plugs plug in, let's just key it on and see what it does. And obviously that was the wrong thing to do. This is pretty much my worst nightmare of having the truck down for how many days do you think?
At least 3.
I mean, it's been down for 3 now, but now it's like, is this gonna be a week-long thing? Is it gonna be like a month of like figuring stuff out? Or do we just say, you know what? Let's put the dash back in it. Let's put the stock seats back in it, and let's just put the center console in it, because that's the main thing that I really wanted anyhow, and just be happy. Sell this to somebody else who wants to attempt it. Somebody with a wrecked 22 or a flooded 22 or something like that. My pride's a little hurt because I know I did the wrong thing, obviously, by not only spending a bunch of time and money on things, but then also rushing, not having the pinouts, potentially burning my truck down, all for a fancy leather interior. I guess we're gonna catch up with you guys in a day or so after I do a little bit more research, which I probably should have done to begin with, but thought this was gonna be a 10-hour job, not a 10-day job. So my little wiring dilemma has led me out to the junkyard. So out here, this truck actually saved my last red truck because we needed some, basically the dash and some other pieces out of it. This is actually some of these connectors. So Ford uses these connectors for the seat harnesses. They use them for a couple other things. And this, I believe, is the same exact harness, or at least this connector that connects into this, but then this is also a different connector that I need. So essentially what I'll be able to do is take, I think it's this one, take that, or this one, plug it in to the other harness, and then make a jumper harness with all these pins and everything to make it all work together. Plus I have plenty of wiring, and I have a couple of these other ones as well too, where I should be able to steal some pins, steal some wiring out of it, jump, and basically make a jumper harness out of this thing, and then it should technically work. So we're back from the junkyard, and I have some bad news. So everything lined up and was looking really good with my whole idea of doing a jumper harness. You can see this is my one I got from the junkyard. It looks good. That plugs in. This right here plugs into the 22 cab harness. This goes into the engine bay for the fuse box and all that other stuff. Looking at the diagrams, I have the pinouts right here. Everything in orange matches up. Everything that is not in orange does not match up, and we are missing certain things. I can make a lot of it work, but there's gonna be missing a few crucial things. Like, let's see, brake pedal deactivation. So we don't have that. That is on the 22 harness, but not on the 18 harness. My truck is at 18 with a 6-speed transmission. The new trucks, the 22s, they have a 10-speed transmission. So they probably have a completely different system for the cruise control and all that other stuff. Also, the 18 has the CAN bus high and low twice. So CAN low, CAN high. CAN low, CAN high. As on the 18 harness, we only have CAN low and high once. Again, not too big of a deal. I think I could split those signals, but that's not the only connector that is different. So on the driver's side, in the wheel well, there's another big giant connector, bulk of connectors. Most of the stuff, I'd say 90% of the stuff lines up. We're missing one thing, the wiper LIN bus, low washer fluid, instrument panel ground. Again, the CAN high and CAN low is actually twice. To a certain extent, I think the harness is almost split. There is, on this one, I believe, there is a relay for the seat multi-contour that is on the other harness on the other side of the dash. Same thing with this on the 18, there is 2 CAN high and CAN lows on this side, whereas on the 22, there's only 1 CAN high and 1 CAN low on completely opposite sides of the trucks. So obviously it's a different system. So when people were saying that this can't be done, they might have been right. I do think that we have a solution though. As of right now, talking with a guy that did this on the 2018 F-150, and what he did is he used his factory wiring harness out of his 2018, and all he did was repin a couple things to the APIM, and he put his 18 harness in the 22 dash, repinned a couple things on the APIM because essentially the connectors are the same. They plug into everything, and he made it work in his truck. Problem is I wanted the whole cab harness so that I could have the heated, cooled seats, the Bang & Olufsen sound system with the subwoofer and all that type of stuff. My dilemma right now is we could do that if I keep my factory seats and make it work. We won't have the dual climate control and all that other stuff because I think some of the wiring is slightly different. But we could technically make the new dash work with my old seats. Maybe if I just run some powers and grounds to those seats, I could have them work. But I wanted the heated, the cooled, I wanted them to work like factory. That was the goal. So I think the only other solution at this point to make everything work 100%, and again, this is me just going through the process in my head of making sure, since the pinouts are so different between the 18 truck and the 20 plus trucks, technically I need to get an 18 Lariat or Platinum harness that has heated and cooled seats, subwoofer, dual climate control. Get that harness, get the dash harness out of that truck, put that in my truck in the 22 dash with my seats. Then technically I think I will have a turnkey complete interior, but at what cost of time and just finding a harness and the effort. And I've already done a lot of brain damage just with this whole project anyhow. It's just one of those things that I probably shouldn't have been spending that much time on it anyhow. I thought I was just gonna have to spend like 12 hours and just get it done, and then it was gonna be done. Not like spend 12 hours, figured it out, and then come to a screeching halt of like, uh-oh, about 8 hours in, then, you know, frying my dash harness out of the 22. I've already pulled out all the modules and stuff. It doesn't look like it damaged anything significant. You could see that this wire did kind of get burnt right here. Most of the other wires are actually in good shape, but just kind of, you know, got them hot and they stuck together. That actually goes to this guy right here. And this was like a voltage reference signal right here. Maybe we messed that thing up. Maybe we fried the whole entire dash. I don't know. So I'm a little bummed at this point. A couple hours into it, I was like, why did I take apart my truck and spend a bunch of money to try to do this? That's things I get myself into sometimes. Let me know what you guys think. Think I should just throw the 18 dash and my seats back in it, sell everything else and just be happy? Or should I continue down this path and try to find an 18 cab harness, dash harness, and all that other stuff? Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think of this project. I'm glad that we did this at my house instead of having this thing completely torn apart and just not running in the middle of the other shop. So appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think of this thing. See if we get it figured out.